Teacher pay raises have been the subject of conversation for a while, but now professionals in the field are turning their head and their attention toward retaining teachers that are already in the workforce. Barry Irwin, a member of Louisiana's Continuous Learning Task Force, weighs in. So obviously teacher pay has been an issue in Louisiana for years at this point. I mean, most teachers on average make about $3,000 less than the Southern regional average. So is teacher pay raise going to be on the agenda for session coming up?
Yes, definitely. I mean, right now the governor's already put it in his executive budget, which basically means he's found the money for it and he wants to do that. Bessie has kind of weighed in too with a slightly different proposal from what the governor had, but it's really pretty much the same thing. So if it goes the governor's plan, it would be $2,000 for teachers, $1,000 for support workers. But if we find more money through the revenue estimating, which people predict that we will because we've been finding so much money lately in the last several months and a couple of years, he would like another $1,000 to go to that teacher pay raise. So that would be $3,000 if we were able to pull all that together.
Okay, right. So that will push us closer and closer to that Southern regional national average right there.
It would get us close to kind of where we think we are right now because these numbers lag a little bit. But the thing that really makes a bit of a difference is that, you know, it's not a stagnant number. I mean, just last year, Mississippi raised teacher pay $5,000. I mean, that's a pretty huge chunk. Alabama did a very comprehensive pay raise, which included up to 15% for different teachers and different experience levels. So this is a moving target. So it will definitely get us closer to where we kind of think we are now. But again, all states are really trying to address this issue.
Right, and it seems like Louisiana is just trying to play catch up at this point.
It has been. We've been kind of near the bottom. We kind of look at ourselves with the southern states and we kind of measure ourselves against about 16. We've been 12th for a long time and we're probably, you know, even with this, probably going to stay somewhere in that area. We'd still like to see it get up to that southern average.
So of course, I mean, there's teacher pay raises, that's always going to be an issue, but I mean, we've had an even bigger problem, so to speak, and that's, you know, actually filling these positions because we don't have a lot of teachers in Louisiana right now. That's
been a big issue, and in fact, I'm serving on a task force that the legislature put together just to address that because it's become so acute. I mean, we've lost. Well, first of all, COVID had a big impact, and we know that. But this was happening before COVID, and it's been happening since. We have fewer, you know, high school students who are wanting to be teachers going into colleges of education and that type of thing. We've seen those numbers decline. We've got a lot of these teachers that when they do come out, they don't make it through the first 5 years. They move on to another job or they go into the private schools or something else. And then we've had people retiring, you know, early. So, I mean, there's a lot of things we're trying to do right now to try and deal with that issue, but it's a serious issue, and certainly pay is one of the elements of it.
So are there any plans, like how are we trying to retain the teachers that we have?
Well, one of the things that we're trying to do in terms of the retention piece is to try and make sure that when these students graduate from colleges of education, so they're first or second year teachers, they're jumping in and sometimes it's not what they expected it to be and it's a little bit over their head. So we're trying to do more with mentor teachers, apprentice type situations where they are partnered with an experienced teacher who can help guide them through the thing, hold their hand, so to speak, through some of the challenges that they'll be facing. And we've seen evidence that when you can do that, that actually does help with retention. We've done some other things on the back end where we've tried to loosen things up a little bit so that teachers who have retired or retired early can kind of go back to the classroom if they want to on a temporary basis without messing up the retirement system. We've seen promise there, and also some things to try and get kids who are in high school into those colleges of education.
Yeah, that was actually going to be my next question. So it seems like teaching really has like the worst PR team in the world at this point because we can't get more people to come into the profession. So aside from that, I mean, how are you guys going to attract these high school students and make teaching look like a good job, something they want to do?
That's a really hard question because some of that is really long term. The perception of the profession of teaching has really kind of declined in, I guess, more than recent years, in a number of years, and teachers have told us that. They feel like that they're not treated like the professionals that they certainly, I think, are. One of the things, though, to your point, there's some programs going on in a lot of high schools that are really meant to try and introduce kids while they're still in high school and that show some interest in the teaching profession, because a lot of people really have some passion for it, to kind of get them into kind of a club, if you want to call it at that time. But it's really, again, with mentoring and kind of helping them through there. We've got them statewide, but in some areas we got some real strong pockets of that, like Central Louisiana, Rapides Parish. We're seeing really good results there. So that's one thing we'd definitely like to see expand.
Yeah, and I've definitely seen some programs popping up in Bruley for high school students just to make sure that they really understand what teaching is about and that it's not always just this difficult and tiring profession. It can be really rewarding in the end.
That's it, and I think a lot of people really approach it with that kind of view because they like kids. We all love kids, and a lot of them want to teach with little kids and do all of that stuff. But then when they get there, the paperwork or somebody scares them away from it. I mean, sure, there are always going to be challenges, and one of the things we need to do is kind of ease those challenges to the degree that we possibly can. But when a young person has an affinity or kind of shows that desire to want to be in the classroom, it's incumbent upon our high schools and everybody else to encourage them because they could come back and be their future teachers.
Yes, 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 yes. All right. So basically the gist of the session this year is teacher pay raises are definitely going to be on the agenda.
Yes.
We're going to focus on trying to retain teachers and get more students to be interested in the profession.
That's exactly right. There'll be some other bills that will try to do that, but I think the teacher pay piece is big and trying to make sure that we're doing as much as we can to kind of ease, some of the stresses and some of the strains that teachers are feeling in the classroom.
All right. Well, thank you so much for joining us. I appreciate it.
Glad to be here.